met you on a sunny day. Right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up. You told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, I can't get enough. Hopeless lover. You make me happy, I feel so fine.
The requirements to attempt Sara is to first have completed the quests Death Plateau and Troll Stronghold. However, using the Gommel's Hilt teleport can bypass these requirements. You will also need at least 70 plus agility to reach the encampment, and these are the minimum recommended stats. But buffing up your range and defense will obviously make things easier for you, and having higher agility will be helpful because this boss fight requires a ton of running. Additionally, I would also recommend 76 Mage for Thralls. To reach Commander Zilyana in the God Wars dungeon, you have several teleport options to Trollheim. You can use the Trollheim spell directly, create a Trollheim teleport tab using a redirection scroll, or use the Gommel's Hilt teleport, which teleports you directly in front of the gate. The medium hilt provides 5 daily teleports, and the hard version offers unlimited. Once you've made your way to Trollheim, descend down the mountain using the agility shortcuts, and then run past the trolls using Protect from Range. You'll encounter a boulder that can be pushed with 60 strength, or be bypassed with 60 agility. The Gommel Hilt will teleport you directly in front of this boulder. Before entering the God Wars dungeon, you must navigate this stormy area here. Without completing the Making Friends with My Arm quest, you'll endure the storm and the accompanying stat drain on each visit. However, completing the quest allows you to build a fire that permanently removes this blizzard. Inside, you'll witness an epic battle amongst all of the different gods' minions. They'll be aggressive unless you wear their respective gods' clothing, like God D'hide or Blessings. The God Wars dungeon is divided into 5 different sections dedicated to Saradomin, Zamorak, Bandos, Armadil, and Zaros. Each section has a unique gimmick for entry and a boss at the very end. For Saradomin, the boss is Commander Zilyana. Each boss room will include an altar that is usable once every 10 minutes if you are out of combat. To reach Zilyana, you will first need to head east after entering the dungeon. You will reach a rock on a waterfall. If this is your first visit, you will need to use a rope on it. Descend down it and continue until you reach a second waterfall. Use your last rope and descend once again. Beyond this door awaits the commander herself. And to enter it, you'll need between 15 and 40 follower kills, depending on how many tiers of the combat tasks you have completed, but 40 is the default. Or you could bypass this requirement with the use of an ecumenical key. These can be obtained as a drop from monsters in the wilderness version of the God Wars dungeon. They drop at a rate of 1 in 60 from any monsters within this dungeon, but this rate can be reduced by each subsequent wilderness diary completed. It can be pretty easy actually to gather them if you wear some variation of this outfit that will protect you from all 4 types of gods, and then focus on killing like the imps or any other weak monsters. If you die in the boss room, your gravestone will appear outside the door. Lastly, if you're an Ironman, you'll get access to a private Ironman instance, which prevents you from being crashed and is a really nice quality of life feature. However, only one Ironman can be in this instance, or one group of group Ironmen, and this is indicated by this torch. If the torch is lit, another Ironman is already in the instance, requiring you to world hop until you find an unlit torch. Here's a progression chart of the gear you should wear. Basically though, if you have crystal gear, you're going to have the easiest time here. The Bofa shreds her, and even the normal crystal bow will deal really solid DPS compared to your crossbow options. But if you don't have crystal gear, you want to try and have a good balance of offense and defense to minimize chip damage from the minions. If you don't make any mistakes, Sara will never hit you, so the only source of damage will come from the range minion, so we just want to stack our range defense as much as possible. Your inventory can really depend on what items you have unlocked, but if you have access to Sara Brews, bringing a few can be really helpful, along with the restore potions to counter its stat drain. It is worth noting that Commander Zilyana will drop Sara Brews and restores during the fight at a rate of 1 out of 21 and at 3 at a time. So depending on how long your trips are, these can really stack up. Additionally, the minions will drop a ton of monkfish and summer pies. With reasonably quick kill times, you can sustain yourself for a long time with these drops. Bringing Bones to Peaches tablets can really help for sustainability as well, especially if you aren't getting mini drops from the minion kills. Stamina potions here are really crucial as you're going to be running throughout each kill. While you can try using super energies, your trips will be short and less efficient and honestly just really painful. Make sure to bring a couple of ranging potions as well. If you are using thralls, which I highly recommend, you want to make sure you bring the runes for those and the Book of the Dead. The book doesn't need to be equipped, it just needs to be in your inventory to summon them. For your special attack weapon, it really depends on what you have access to. If you have a blowpipe, it's highly recommended for much faster minion kills and the self-healing effect through its special attack. There are some alternatives you can bring, but the blowpipe will definitely be your best bet. But don't feel like you absolutely need the blowpipe before coming here. You can definitely get away with no spec weapon if you don't have any of these options. Lastly, bring your preferred method of teleporting to Trollheim and one ecumenical key. If you're unfamiliar with the key, it bypasses the entire kill count requirement to enter the door, which is especially helpful for Sara since there aren't any easy low-level monsters to quickly stack up that 40 KC. There aren't a ton of special mechanics we need to be worried about in this fight, and the method we're going to be using really trivializes any mechanic she would have. Commander Zilyana attacks with both melee and magic and is super accurate, but she will only attack once you're in melee range, and her maximum hit with melee is only 27 and with magic it's 20, so small mistakes shouldn't really result in your death, and if executed correctly, you'll never take any damage from her. All 3 minions will always attack who is ever currently attacking Zilyana. This really only matters if you're not soloing the fight. Each minion has a different attack style. Starlight uses melee, Growler uses magic, and Bree uses ranged. Since Starlight uses melee, they will chase you throughout the fight alongside Zilyana. Therefore, the only minion you should ever take damage from is Bree, since we're going to protect from mage throughout the fight. The basic idea of this method is to run around the perimeter of the room with Zilyana and Starlight in tow and attack periodically indicated by these marked tiles. The rhythm becomes attack, click the next tile, reach that tile, attack, and repeat. As long as you maintain this rhythm, you shouldn't take any damage. This is more of a preference thing, but Starlight and Zilyana will always be on top of one another, so you can use the menu entry swapper plugin to swap Starlight's left click option to walk here. This allows you to click Zilyana without ever accidentally clicking Starlight, and another approach is to just right click Zilyana, which for some people is easier to time with the tiles, so it really comes down to what works better for you. The tiles you use depend on whether you're using a 4-tick weapon like a bowfa or crystal bow, or a 5-tick weapon like a crossbow or a T-bow. There are 2 important differences between these 2 methods right off the bat though. The first is that if you aren't using a range 10 weapon like a T-bow, then the starting tile will be slightly too far away to immediately reach the boss on rapid with a crossbow, because the range for them is about 30% shorter. So your character will get pulled forward. You can either simply run back to the starting tile, attack again, and then run to the corner, or alternatively, you can start the kill on long range and then switch to rapid for the remainder of the kill. The second key difference is related to pathing. In the northwest and southeastern corners, you'll need to manually path to an intermediary tile between attacking tiles. This is to force Zilyana to hug the walls and keep her from cutting corners and catching up to you. If you want to mark these tiles, I recommend using a Tile Packs plugin as they have a 4 and 5-tick method available. Alternatively, you can find both methods in the description if you'd rather just import them directly. I will say, however, if it's your first time coming here, you do not need to be this sweaty with perfect tiles and perfect timing. You can take a much more laid back approach and just attack at each corner and once in the middle of each wall. This obviously will make the fights last longer and you will burn through run energy a little faster, but I did my first 100 kills here doing it like this and it was just fine. This fight is honestly pretty forgiving and you don't need to use these try-hard tile setups to get kills, but once you're comfortable and ready to start taking it a little more seriously, these setups will drastically improve your trip efficiency and sustainability. If you make a mistake and Zilyana ends up attacking you, you can pretty easily fix the rotation by waiting for her to finish her attack animation, and then once she begins walking towards you, you can start back up on your rotation. If you were to just keep running the entire time, her pathing gets messed up and she will cross the entire arena to get to you. So waiting a moment is key in ensuring you don't keep getting attacked. The most important aspect to pay attention to during this fight is your run energy. If it runs out, you can quickly become overwhelmed. The fights can be pretty long and there's 90 seconds of downtime between each kill, so you'll want to drink 1 stamina dose at the start of each fight, and make sure to conserve run energy by walking in between kills. When first entering the boss room, immediately attack Zilyana, then run to your entry tile, attack once more, and then begin your cycle as normal. At the beginning of each fight, if you brought thralls, make sure to summon one. If your fights are longer, it will probably run out mid-fight, and it's really up to you if you want to resummon them or not. If you're soloing though, it's really beneficial to just have them up all the time. You'll pretty quickly build the muscle memory of when it's appropriate to run to the next tile, but initially you can use the sound of your attack or the EXP drops as cues of when to run. But these tiles are timed in a specific way that allows for almost no downtime, so by the time you reach the next tile, you should be able to immediately attack. There's also a more advanced technique that is substantially more energy efficient that requires you to walk certain tiles. The tiles marked here are the tiles you walk for the 4-tick method, and these yellow tiles are the ones you walk for the 5-tick method. If you're doing the 5-tick method, however, you will need to walk 2 tiles, so you might find it easier to use control to force your character to walk instead of clicking both tiles individually, but this really just comes down to personal preference. While the majority of Ironman won't be able to make use of the duo method, if you're part of a group Ironman team, you'll want to consider this approach as it greatly simplifies the fight. When this method is executed correctly, you can basically stay as long as you like, and I've personally achieved near 100 kill trips before. It makes this boss fight extremely relaxed. The duo method really isn't too different from the solo method either. One player will run around the room following the same strategies to kill the boss. The second player will act in a supporting role, wear the best strength gear that you have, and take care of the minions, as well as bring additional supplies for your main attacker and runes for high-alching rune drops. Defense doesn't really matter too much for the second player, as you will rarely take any significant damage. This is because even though you're killing the minions, they're still going to be focusing on attacking who is ever currently attacking Zilyana. Honestly, you can fulfill this role with pretty much any setup, but I recommend having a means to heal yourself that doesn't involve consuming the food drops, as those should really be reserved for the main damage dealer. Some great options include utilizing special attacks that provide healing, such as a Sara Godsword, a blowpipe, bringing a Guthin switch, or employing Bones to Peaches spells. As I mentioned earlier, you really shouldn't sustain much damage in this role, so any form of self-healing should suffice, and the more inventory space you can free up for your teammate, the better. The reason we're doing this should be pretty obvious, but by eliminating the minions, the main attacker will experience pretty minimal chip damage, while also increasing your chances of obtaining Godsword shards. These shards are still pretty rare from minions, but you're going to be killing so many of them that it does happen. In our group personally, we've obtained almost all of our Godsword shards just from killing these 3 minions alone. Furthermore, the minions will also drop summer pies and monkfish, and since you'll be killing more of them, it makes it super easy to sustain your teammates' food usage. That, in addition with the aforementioned Sara brews and super restores and prayer potion drops, your trips can be significantly extended. Whether you're doing solo or duo, after you finish killing Zilyana, you'll want to prioritize killing Starlight first, as we really don't have much in the way of melee defense. This is when you're going to take out your spec weapon to get some healing off and try to down the minions as quickly as possible. If you're bringing along Bones to Peaches, pick up the bones if you have the inventory space. Another more advanced thing you can do to mitigate some damage here is off-ticking the minions. If you're unfamiliar with this concept, the basic idea is to time your prayer switch with the attacks so you cycle between them and never take damage from either of them. You can do this with all 3 minions, but it's much more difficult. They won't always be naturally set up for off-ticking, and in my opinion, the time it takes to manually adjust them can sometimes just be longer than it's worth. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out for to take advantage of when you can, but I really wouldn't go out of my way to do it unless you're already very proficient at it. The loot from Commander Zilyana can be pretty rewarding. The 2 most notable drops are the Saradomin hilt and the Armadillo crossbow. The Sara Godsword is an amazing spec weapon for healing and prayer and can be a really nice addition to any Slayer task, and the crossbow is a really excellent upgrade over the rune crossbow that most Ironmen are stuck with for ages. The other drops aren't particularly noteworthy, but I guess it is a nice bonus to have the Saradomin's light, which is used to illuminate the Zamorak room. Aside from that, you can get Godsword shards like from any of the bosses in the God Wars dungeon. The rate for any unique item seems to be roughly 1 out of 147 and 1 out of 254 for any Godsword shard. Her normal drops are pretty uninspired and boring, but those potion drops are key to extending your trips. Lastly, her pet chance is 1 out of 5k, so good luck with that, but she is a really cool pet in my opinion. And with that, you should have everything you need to defeat Commander Zilyana. May the RNG gods bless you. Let me know down in the comments if there was anything I missed or future guides you would like to see me make. Happy hunting. I'll catch you in the next one.